I didn't believe in haunted objects. At least, not before I moved into the mansion. The place was old. Really old. The kind of house that looked like it had been forgotten by time. Tall iron gates. Broken windows. Walls covered in ivy. And a long gravel driveway that made a horrible crunching sound every time you walked on it. Most people in town avoided the house completely. But when I saw the rent price, I couldn't say no. It was unbelievably cheap. The landlord didn't ask many questions. He just handed me the keys and said something strange before leaving. "Don't go into the attic." I laughed at the time. Old houses always have weird rumors. But the moment I stepped inside the mansion, I felt it. The air inside was cold. Not the normal kind of cold. The kind that feels heavy. Like the house is watching you. The floors creaked with every step. Long hallways stretched into darkness. Portraits of people I didn't recognize hung on the walls. And for some reason, every painting seemed to be staring directly at me. The first night was quiet. Too quiet. No neighbors. No cars. Just the sound of wind brushing against the old windows. But around 2:14 a.m., I heard something. A soft noise. From upstairs. A small, dragging sound. Like something being slowly pulled across the floor. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. The staircase leading to the second floor looked darker than the rest of the house. The shadows at the top seemed deeper. But curiosity got the better of me. So I went upstairs. The hallway was empty. All the doors were closed. But the noise came again. Soft. Slow. Dragging. This time I realized something strange. The sound wasn't coming from a bedroom. It was coming from above me. From the ceiling. From the attic. I remembered what the landlord said. "Don't go into the attic." For a moment I considered going back to my room. But then I noticed something odd. At the end of the hallway, a small wooden ladder was hanging from the ceiling. The attic entrance. And it was already open. I didn't remember opening it. Slowly, I climbed up. The attic smelled like dust and old wood. My flashlight revealed piles of old furniture covered in white sheets. Broken chairs. Old boxes. And cobwebs hanging everywhere. Then my light landed on something sitting in the middle of the floor. A small wooden chair. And sitting on that chair was a doll. A little girl doll. Porcelain face. Long black hair. Old lace dress. Its head was tilted slightly to the side. Like it was watching me. I walked closer. Trying to figure out why someone would leave a doll here. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The doll's face wasn't dusty. Everything else in the attic was covered in years of dust. But the doll looked clean. Like someone had been touching it recently. I bent down to look closer. And that's when I saw the name stitched into the doll's dress. Emily. At that exact moment, a small voice whispered behind me. Very softly. Almost like a child. "Don't touch her." I spun around immediately. My flashlight scanned the entire attic. But there was no one there. Just silence. I slowly turned back toward the doll. And my heart nearly stopped. Because the doll's head was now facing the opposite direction. Looking directly at me. I froze. The doll's head was definitely facing me now. Just a few seconds earlier it had been tilted toward the wall. But now those porcelain eyes were staring directly at my face. I told myself there had to be a logical explanation. Maybe I bumped the chair. Maybe the floor shifted. Maybe. But deep down I knew something wasn't right. My phone buzzed suddenly in my hand. The loud vibration made me jump. It was just a notification. Still, my heart was racing. I looked back at the doll one more time. Okay, That's enough attic exploring for one night, I muttered. I climbed down the ladder and pulled the attic door shut. But just before it closed completely, I heard something above me. A small sound, like porcelain tapping against wood. Tap, tap, tap. I stood there for a moment, staring at the attic door. Then I forced myself to walk away, back to my bedroom. I locked the door and tried to sleep. But something about the mansion felt different now. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It felt like something was listening, watching, waiting. Eventually, exhaustion took over and I fell asleep. But sometime during the night, I woke up, not because of a sound, because of a feeling. The strange feeling that someone else was in the room. I opened my eyes slowly. The moonlight coming through the window lit up half the room. Everything looked normal. My desk, my chair, my suitcase near the wall. Then I noticed something near the bedroom door. A small shape. My heart stopped. Sitting on the floor, right in front of the door, was the doll, Emily. The same porcelain face, the same black hair, the same lace dress. I sat up instantly. No, no, no. My mind raced, trying to understand how it got there. I clearly remembered leaving it in the attic. I jumped out of bed and walked closer. The doll was sitting perfectly upright, its glass eyes staring forward. But something about its expression looked different now. Almost amused. I picked it up carefully. The porcelain felt ice cold in my hands. Okay, someone is messing with me, I whispered. Maybe the landlord had a key. Maybe someone else lived in the house. Maybe this was some stupid prank. I carried the doll upstairs again, climbed into the attic, and placed it back onto the chair. This is where you stay, I said, half joking. Then I climbed down the ladder again. But before I closed the attic door, I looked back one last time. And that's when I noticed something that made my skin crawl. The chair the doll had been sitting on was now facing the attic entrance, pointing directly at the ladder, like someone had turned it to watch me leave. I quickly shut the attic door and locked it. That night, I pushed a chair against my bedroom door, just in case. But around 3:03 a.m., I woke up again, this time to a sound, a very soft sound, coming from the hallway outside my room. Slow footsteps, tiny footsteps, like a child walking barefoot across the wooden floor. And then, the footsteps stopped right outside my door. Complete silence filled the hallway. Then something softly tapped against the wood. 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. And a small voice whispered from the other side. Why did you leave me alone in the attic? I didn't move. The voice outside my door sounded exactly like a little girl. Soft, quiet, almost sad. But there was no way a child was inside the mansion. I had checked every room earlier that day. The hallway outside my bedroom was empty. Still, the voice came again. Even softer this time. Please, don't leave me alone. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. For a moment I considered opening the door, but something deep inside me said that would be a mistake. Instead, I stayed silent. After a few seconds, the hallway went quiet again. No footsteps, no whispers, nothing. Eventually, exhaustion took over and I fell asleep again. The next morning, the mansion felt strangely normal. Sunlight poured through the tall windows. Birds were chirping outside. For a moment, it almost felt like the previous night had been a nightmare. But when I stepped into the hallway, I saw something that proved it wasn't. Small footprints, dusty footprints, leading across the wooden floor. Tiny footprints, like a child had walked down the hallway during the night. and they led directly to my bedroom door. A cold chill ran down my spine. I followed the footprints down the hallway. They led to the staircase, then down to the living room. And finally, they stopped in front of an old wooden cabinet. Inside the cabinet were piles of old papers, documents, letters, and newspapers. Most of them were decades old. One yellow newspaper immediately caught my attention. The headline read, "Tragedy at Blackwood Mansion." My stomach tightened as I started reading. The article was dated 1958. According to the story, a wealthy family once lived in the mansion. A man, his wife, and their young daughter. Her name was Emily Blackwood. She was only 7 years old. The article said Emily rarely left the mansion. Her parents kept her isolated from the outside world. Neighbors claimed they often heard the girl talking to herself through the windows. Then one night, Emily disappeared. The parents claimed she had run away, but the police never believed them. Weeks later, the mansion caught fire. Both parents died inside the house, but Emily was never found. No body, no trace, just gone. I felt uneasy reading the final paragraph, because the reporter had written something strange. Several witnesses claimed that even after the fire, people passing by the mansion could still see a little girl standing in the attic window, holding a doll. I slowly lowered the newspaper and suddenly remembered something. The doll in the attic. The one with the name stitched into the dress. Emily. At that exact moment, something moved upstairs. A soft creaking sound. From the attic. I looked up toward the ceiling. The attic ladder slowly began to slide open, on its own, and then something rolled down the ladder, slowly, step by step, until it landed at the bottom. The porcelain doll. Emily. But this time, something was different. Its face was cracked, and the smile on its porcelain lips looked much wider. My phone buzzed suddenly. I looked down at the screen. A message from an unknown number. There was only one sentence. "You finally read my story." And then another message appeared. "Now come back to the attic." I stared at the message on my phone. "Now come back to the attic." My hands felt cold. The doll sat at the bottom of the ladder, looking straight at me. Its porcelain face was cracked now. Thin lines spread across its cheeks like fractures in old glass. But the thing that disturbed me most was its smile. It looked wider than before, almost unnatural. For a moment I considered leaving the mansion immediately, just grabbing my things and walking out. But something about the message pulled me back upstairs, like the house itself wanted me to see something. Slowly, I climbed the ladder again. The attic felt colder than before. The flashlight on my phone barely lit the room. Dust floated through the air like tiny shadows. But something had changed. The old chair in the center of the attic was no longer empty. The doll was sitting there again, even though I had just seen it downstairs. I froze halfway inside the attic. Okay, that's not possible. My phone buzzed again. Another message appeared. "You found my story." Then another one. "But you didn't find me." My heart started racing. "What do you mean?" I whispered. The typing bubble appeared on my screen. Then the reply came. "Behind the wall." At first, I didn't understand. But then I noticed something strange in the attic. Behind the chair, part of the wooden wall looked newer than the rest. The boards were slightly different, like they had been replaced at some point. My stomach twisted. Slowly, I walked toward the wall. The wood creaked as I pushed against it. And suddenly one of the boards shifted. It popped loose and fell to the floor. Behind it, there was a hollow space. And inside that space, was a small skeleton. The bones were tiny, the size of a child, and wrapped around the skeleton's arm was an old lace dress, the same kind of dress the doll was wearing. My entire body went numb. Emily never ran away. She never left the mansion. Someone had hidden her body inside the attic wall. Right here. Right behind where the doll had been sitting. At that moment, my phone buzzed again. Another message appeared. "You found me." Then something moved behind me. A soft creaking sound. Very slowly, I turned around. The doll was no longer sitting on the chair. It was standing, right in the center of the attic floor. Its head tilted slightly. The cracked porcelain face staring directly at me. My phone vibrated one last time. A final message appeared. "Thank you for opening the wall." Then another. "Now I don't need the doll anymore." The attic door suddenly slammed shut. The ladder snapped upward, and the room fell into complete darkness. In the silence, I heard something moving behind me. Soft footsteps. Tiny footsteps. Slowly walking across the attic floor. And a small voice whispered right next to my ear. "Now you can stay with me."